You got Birds 365 here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Appreciate everybody who streamed in. If you're on the line and you're checking us out, you can go ahead and hit that like button. You got to like the fact that the voice of the Eagles in Espanol is joining me, Rickie Ricardo. Mi amigo, ¿qué pasa?
Good morning, my friend. I'm dedicating this appearance today to my buddy Kevin Brown, the voice of the Baltimore Orioles. So I'm just making that very clear. I'm in support of my man Kevin Brown, so I am dedicating today's appearance to him. Okay. You can explain the situation, John.
I will quickly, and I will also cover my own backside here. And Rickie comes to us free of charge. We don't pay Ricardo for his appearances, nor does John McMullen get paid when he opts on WIP with Rickie. So it's kind of a one hand washes the other thing. I actually do get paid $14.12 an hour. And if I get suspended today for spitting facts about the Eagles, I guess I shouldn't be shocked because, yeah, your compatriot from the Baltimore Orioles found the same thing at his doorstep. All he did was state facts. Yep. And I thought he was putting a spin on it that made the Orioles look good. But somehow their obnoxious owner took that as making the Orioles look like they were cheap. It makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know how that came down, but it was an embarrassment for the Baltimore Orioles.
So the interesting thing is the facts that he gave out are on the team's daily game notes. So all he did was read from the team's game notes that day and still got in trouble for it. So
I'm hoping that PR person, not that I'm going to sound like such a bad person here, but I hope that person got suspended too. Because if you put him in the game notes, yeah, the announcers are going to use them. Suspend them all. Oh, that's right. You're trying to win the American League East. Maybe you shouldn't be trying to do that right about now. But here's the good news, Ricardo. You will be able to solely focus on the Philadelphia Eagles by October because you're not going to have to worry about Yankee postseason games.
It's a kind of a double-edged sword when your team is, steadily going in the wrong direction, shall we say. Now, I heard your prediction of an all-green Super Bowl.
Correct.
Like you, Jody, as you know, I was born and raised a Jet fan, although obviously my loyalty has swung completely 95 miles south to the Philadelphia Eagles. But I think that would be rather interesting, and it is not out of the realm of possibility that Aaron Rodgers and the Jet defense have enough to get them through the AFC. And I would welcome anybody in Las Vegas, would welcome anybody other than Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes again. So
did you catch the Rodgers interview in game in the Hall of Fame game the other night?
No, I was doing a ball game. So
okay, you were. Yeah, I forgot you were probably at Yankee Stadium or somewhere else. Yeah. If you go back and catch it, I was really pretty impressed by him because my opinion of Rodgers has not changed. He might be the most talented quarterback to ever play the position. He's not the best because that incorporates accomplishments, and he's got one Super Bowl, and that Brady guy has that many more. So he's the greatest of all time. But if you're just talking about the skill set needed to play quarterback in the NFL, he might be the best who's ever played. But he's a bit of a diva, and he's a bit of a whack job, and ayahuasca and dark retreats and the like. So I never know what's going to come out of his mouth. He was really on point and very positive about what he expects to do with the Jets and his commitment to the Jets. So if you're a quasi-Jet fan, go check that out and then go, oh, man, Jody, you get 90-1. If the Jets beat the Eagles, which I bet that, 90-1. If the Eagles beat the Jets, it's only 80-1 because the Eagles are more of a favorite coming into the season. But those are my two wagers, and I'm feeling good about them both. So we'll see how that shakes out. All right, from the Eagles' perspective, go ahead.
Let it ride.
I'm in. From an Eagle perspective, late addition linebackers. Well, I say late addition, it's where you draw your line. Late in that they didn't sign them during the offseason, waited until camp opened up, got a peek at their linebackers, and go, maybe we need to put more emphasis on the linebacker position. But it's early because at least they have all of camp or most of camp, certainly all of the preseason games to get up to speed. What do you make of the Eagles at this time jumping in and not signing one, but two? Is this Howie's new modus operandi? when you see a position that needs a bit of an upgrade. No, we're not bringing in one. We're bringing in two guys. We need a safety net to the safety net to have guys who did it last year at the defensive tackle position. What do you make of the two new linebackers added to the Eagle roster this week?
You read my mind. Last year, obviously, Ndamukong Suh was one of the two guys they brought in to reinforce the line. I'm a big Miles Jack guy. I always was. Now, kudos to Howie Roseman for seeing a potential issue. We have an ankle injury with Nakobe Dean. You don't want that to get out of hand, or maybe for that to slow down anything of this train moving forward. So kudos to him for getting aggressive and making sure that these guys don't fall on some other roster, possibly between now and the time we get to Foxborough on September the 10th. I've always been a big Miles Jack guy. The linebacker position, and say, look, the only concern I have with this team, Jody, is down the middle of the defense, linebackers and safety. I think up front we're fine. I think I like our corners. We have a lot of youth, obviously, and if we're going to have the same scheme defensively now that we did under Gannon, you also know that linebacker is not, in this particular scheme, not as important as it might be on some other defensive coordinators' radar. Having said that, though, I thought last year, and actually going back a few years, linebacker has been the quote-unquote weak link of the defense. Kudos to Howie to get this done now. As you just mentioned, there's plenty of time to get them integrated into the system. They'll probably see some time even starting this weekend in Baltimore. So, look, I'm impressed by everything Howie Roseman does. This guy has taken the position of player personnel and general manager and the like to another level in these past few seasons. Executive of the year, no. Executive of the decade, possibly executive of the century for me, for Howie Roseman. But I thought it was interesting when I read about that on Sunday. But of the two guys, I'm a big Miles Jack guy.
All right, and we'll see what Miles Jack brings to the table. But in redoing the linebackers, you said last year with Gannon, certainly, and we expect this year's defense to be similar. Not exactly the same, but similar.
True.
Not as much of an emphasis on linebacker. 159 tackles is a lot to replace, and that's what TJ Edwards got last year. Is Nakobe Dean going to be able to get into the neighborhood as many as 159 tackles? Now, Edwards was not a playmaking linebacker. He doesn't force fumbles. He doesn't come up with interceptions, but just a stone-cold solid tackler. Nakobe Dean going to be able to do what he did?
I hope so. I loved him coming out of school. I think he's got the tools to be able to do it. Now, remember, TJ Edwards didn't appear overnight. Okay. Remember, this is a kid out of Wisconsin who, nobody really had on their radar to be as good as he turned out to be, but it took him a few seasons to develop into the TJ Edwards that we saw last year. My fear is that if Nakobe Dean hasn't caught up to that, it may take him another year to get the best out of him. Now, I think Dean is surrounded by more talent, more young, pure talent than Edwards was at this same stage in their parallel careers. Am I confident that Dean can get to those numbers? Second-level defender, as you mentioned, Edwards wasn't a big playmaker, but when the plays got to him, he was able to make them, which, when you think about it, is just as important. I'm banking on Dean being better in time than Edwards. I think he's a better athlete.
All right. I do want to talk a little bit about the Eagle offense with you as well, Rick. Last night we found out, according to the NFL players, Jalen Hurts, third best player in the National Football League, trailing only Patrick Mahomes and Justin Jefferson. NFL.com released their top 10. They had been slowly releasing their entire top 100. Top 10, Jalen Hurts comes in at number 3, ahead of Joe Burrow, number 6, ahead of Josh Allen, number 8, the number 3 player in the National Football League. We all just accept the fact that Jalen Hurts is like God's gift to Philadelphia when it comes to football. He performs on the field. He handles himself like a pro. He's driven. He says all the right things. Any chance this is a little bit of an ego boost that we'll have any potential downside ramifications?
I don't see it, Jody. I don't see it. I don't think the contract, I don't think the extra hype is going to be a negative. If there's one thing about Jalen Hurts that impresses me even more than his physical acumen, is his mental approach to the game. As the son of a coach and obviously a very humble guy and just dedicated to his craft, until I see something distract this guy from his mission of winning a Super Bowl. Here's a guy who's, on his phone has got a picture of losing a Super Bowl to remind him every day to use it as motivation. Until I see something distract him and take him away from his razor-sharp focus of getting back to that game and winning it, that I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I've been around baseball players. You and I have both been in locker rooms, clubhouses, for years, and we have seen guys that may have shown up as a country bumpkin, may have shown up as a very quiet, introverted guy. In the matter of seasons gone by, the ego, the contract, the women, the distractions, all that may catch up to certain guys. Jody, I'm convinced this guy is all about football.
Right.
I mean, he has shown me nothing that would indicate to me that I have to worry about Jalen Hurts letting a list, a contract, anything distract him from his mission of taking the Philadelphia Eagles to another Super Bowl. So I understand exactly where you're coming from because I've experienced it. There have been guys that when they have come up to, let's say, the major league level, not so much in football, but baseball, you see guys on a daily basis for such a long time. I'll give you an example, and even a guy like a Domingo Germán, who I saw very humble one day and very aloof the next day, over the matter of days and over the matter of seasons, over the course of seasons, as an example. But I don't think Jalen Hurts will let a list or the hype or the fact that he didn't do, the TV show for Netflix, nothing of the negative or the positive side. This guy has blinders on. His mission is Las Vegas and beyond, championships, and I think he'll be just fine.
I love the fact that he passed on the Netflix show because that was my one concern, was because Jalen is such a good guy and a dedicated employee and a Philadelphia Eagle through and through that maybe too many people would be grasping at him for his time because he had such a meteoric rise in one season that the commitments, the media attention, that he would just try and be too good a guy and not say no. So when he said no to let Netflix, I said, all right, that's a real good sign for Jalen.
Big time.
But again, playing devil's advocate here, Eagle fans, his new offensive coordinator is a guy who's known him since he was a wee lad and has been around him forever in Brian Johnson. And Johnson is first year in the NFL calling plays. And Shane Steichen, to me, was phenomenal at it last year here in Philadelphia. So we need to see Brian Johnson as a play call. Not saying he's not going to be good. He could be as good, even better than Shane Steichen. But it's an unknown coming into the season. And the other unknown is, as close as Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts are, their dynamic, their relationship changes a little bit when you're now the offensive coordinator and the play caller and you're dealing with your quarterback. Is there a chance that they're too close, that they're too tight, that will be a tough relationship to negotiate because they've known each other as long as they have?
I think with this particular player, you're right in theory. I think you are right in theory. The difference here is Hurts. There's something about this guy that sets him apart from other players that I may have a concern if it were another set of guys. Johnson, I can't vouch for. Hurts, I think I know enough about and have seen enough and feel good enough about that I don't think it's going to deter him from the mission. If Johnson has to come down on him for whatever reason, I just don't see it. I see the potential if it were two other guys. And like I said, if it were anybody other than Hurts, then I would say, Jody, the jury is out. We'll have to see as we go along. I'm going to go in here with blinders on. If there's one thing that concerns me overall about the coaching staff, obviously, is the lack of experience with both coordinators on the offensive and defensive side. I think time and the fact that they have so much talent is going to accelerate the time it takes for these two guys to blend into the positions. And hopefully it'll happen by opening day, because you never know week to week in this league and the emotion of the game in New England. The Brady thing, though, it's Belichick who's trying to catch Don Shula, for Pete's sake. So you don't want to have a slip up or trip up here early in the season because of a mistake made by a young coordinator. I just don't see it on Hurts's part. You're right. They're very, very tight. They've known each other a very, very long time. I think in this particular case, with this quarterback, I think that may enhance, instead of running the risk of being a potential, a dynamite field, I think this will not only enhance his on-field performance, but I think the comfort level that he has with Johnson is going to keep him in that lane that we just discussed of being humble and dedicated to his craft.
Good to hear. All right, I'm going to ask you about three positions that in the National Football League, my opinion, have been devalued. And the Eagles are right there with everybody else in the National Football League in devaluing these positions. But there is the possibility that you can go too far in devaluing. The three positions are linebacker. We already talked about that with the two guys they just signed. And Nakobe Dean, Willie, or won't he be the equivalent of TJ Edwards coming into the year? The other two are running back and the kicking game. Let's go running back first. Eagles decided to let Miles Sanders walk away, signs with Carolina. They put together a running back room that is making basically the same as Miles Sanders. One player, Eagles have 5 guys under contract. The 5 guys make about what Miles is going to make this year in Carolina. So they've been able to put together a pretty good looking room on paper for a very inexpensive price. Did Howie Roseman do a good job, a great job, a questionable job at from last year's running back roster to this year's running back roster? Very similar, except for one big change at the top. Did he do a good enough job? Is this running back group going to get the job done the same way that it did last year?
I love it. I absolutely love it. Swift, Penny, Gainwell, and then your Swiss Army knife type of guy in Boston Scott, who's also a special teamer. Now, are you ready? I think those are the 4 guys. When it comes down to
it. Trey Sermon is spit out of luck, even though Nick Sirianni goes bending over backwards to try and tell you how great he looks at practice.
And I'm a Trey Sermon guy. I think short of an injury, and Penny's been injury prone, Kenny Gainwell's been very, very reliable. Swift has had, nicks here and there, nicked up here and there. It's a great insurance policy to have Sermon, as we did last year. But not only did Howie improve the room, made it financially, I don't know the word I'm looking for here. He fit a square peg in a round hole to be able to pay some other people and still have an upgrade in talent. I think Swift, I put him on that same level or maybe even a step above Miles Sanders. I was a Sanders guy. I saw him go up and down the last couple of years. He was a little bit slow to the hole on several occasions last year. You're running behind the best offensive line, in my opinion, in the entire National Football League. I think Howie is very astute at moving away from players right before their careers start to take a downturn. Carolina may get, I don't know, a year, maybe 2 of the Miles Sanders that we saw on the upswing in Philadelphia. If they get 2 years out of Sanders at the money that they're paying, they probably, quote unquote, Jody, break even. I love the fact that these guys are still on an upward climb, these backs. Penny is the guy that interests me the most. I know what I'm going to get from Swift because I saw him do it against the Eagles. I know what I'm going to get from Gainwell. I'm convinced. You don't have to, sell me on Gainwell, especially, passes out of the backfield. Boston Scott, can do everything. Special teams, the giant killer. Penny is the guy that really intrigues me the most in this group. When I saw him in Seattle, when the Pete Carroll offenses had a halfway decent offensive line, this guy was dynamite, Jody. Dynamite.
Yes.
That four-headed monster, if you want to call it three backs, and if you want to say Boston Scott, you even want to look at him as kind of an extra or special teamer and Sermon as an insurance policy. Not only was it a brilliant move financially for Howie Roseman, I think it's an upgrade to what we've had the last couple of years.
We shall see. That would be a major feather in Howie's cap if it plays out the way you're describing. And then comes the kicking game. And we all know Jake Elliott's good. He's above average. I'll take my chances with him walking out for a 50-yarder to win the game. Week 1, week 7, week 9, week 14. The kicking game, the guy who's going to need to make the big field goal, I'm not worried at all about the Eagles. I think they're in dynamite shape. Punter, that could be a little different. And Aaron Sipas is back. And McMullen, who goes to practice every single day and tries to take notes when the punting sessions go down, say it hasn't been close. He has distanced the kid that they brought in to compete with him. But it still hangs over the Eagles like a dark cloud, the punt in the Super Bowl that allowed Kansas City to start inside the red zone, and we know the result of the game now. He really wasn't that good last year. Sorry, Aaron. Love to root for you, but the facts are the facts, and I'm spitting facts kind of like the Baltimore Oriole play-by-play guy here. Hope it doesn't get me suspended. But I have concerns about the punting game. Here's my question to you, Ricardo. The Eagles opened up, brought back with at least for a day, open arms, Josh Sills, who is on the commissioner's list, charges against him for rape and kidnapping. He was found not guilty in a court of law, so the commissioner raised his suspension, and he was reinstated by the Philadelphia Eagles. And they had some nice enough things to say about him yesterday when the ruling came down that their dealings with Josh have been great. The court has spoken. They've said what they've had to say, and it'll be interesting to see how they handle it. And I hope they judge him by his abilities on the field. If they're going to bring Josh Sills back, and they weren't just, hey, listen, this is too much to handle, we need to move on with Sills, why don't they bring Matt Araiza in? The punt god, who last year was cut by the Buffalo Bills when accusations, and they were only accusations, not even arrested like Josh Sills was. That was enough for him to get pushed out of the National Football League. He's still out there. I watch this kid because I'm on the air till 2 o'clock in the morning on CBS Sports Radio on the weekend. So I get to see WAC games, Mountain West games, because they're on TV while I'm on the air. And I watched this kid punt, and he kicked the football like nobody I've ever seen before, including the great guy. He just was amazing. And I know he's on a collegiate level, but you got that kind of a talent out there, and we assume the reason he's not on a National Football League roster is because of these off-field accusations against him. Why don't the Eagles at least bring him in for a workout?
Are you convinced that Sippos is not the guy yet? Completely convinced?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, it wouldn't shock me at some. Remember, a punter you could probably integrate into the system faster than any other position. So, as compared to a linebacker like the two guys they just signed, or trying to blend a guy into an offensive line, for example, I just think that there's still enough time moving forward to where if they don't see enough, let's see these two guys kick this week. Maybe the move gets made. It's a move that can be made basically right up until the time you get ready for opening day.
That's a good point. It's not like you need to learn the system.
Exactly.
It should take you about 2.5 hours of classroom time to sit down and be able to figure out what the team wants you to do when you're called on to punt every week in the league.
Obviously, and you just mentioned the Josh Sills situation. I can go back to Michael Vick, and there's probably a bunch of other examples. But the Philadelphia Eagles are an organization that is very fair. They're very fair in situations like this. They don't play the card of using things as an excuse. You were exonerated. You did your time. They are very open-minded and very fair about the way they judge their players. They don't hold things over their heads on both sides. Okay, they'll discipline a guy when necessary. A guy's been proven innocent or has done his time, for example. They're willing to embrace them again. So the attitude of the organization doesn't worry me at all. What I'm saying is I'll give these two guys that are the original two in camp some time to either win the job, or if Howie's still scratching his head after one or two of the preseason games, then don't let it shock you if we're not having this conversation, and maybe that young man gets invited, him or someone else would get invited to camp. What I'm saying is on the 10th of September, I'm confident that the most talented group of guys that are out there available in every position will be wearing Eagle uniform. So because it's a punter, it's not as urgent to get him into camp as some other positions might be. So I'll take a wait-and-see attitude on it.
All right, so Saturday, the Eagles start their preseason at the Baltimore Ravens. Oh, by the way, let me tick off the Eagle fans one more time. The Eagles are going to lose on Saturday. Not because they're the Eagles, not because they prep less than anybody else, not because they got questions at certain positions. They got the number 3 player in the National Football League. That's pretty damn good. They're going to lose because John Harbaugh just never loses a preseason game. He puts a lot of effort into it, and the Ravens win every single time they play. So the Eagles are going to lose on Saturday.
And that's fine.
That's right. No skin off anybody's noses. It should not be. You will be in the house to call the game on Saturday?
Yes, I will. I will fly in from Miami on Saturday morning. I will call the game, and believe you me, my baseball this weekend is the Miami Marlins. Okay, the Yankees are in Miami, and you know, Jody, you know me well enough. I do not miss on any opportunity to call a game in stadium in either Tampa, Miami. I'll even go as far north as Atlanta, which I'll be next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So, yes, I will be in Baltimore. I will fly in on Tuesday, and I will fly right back out on Sunday morning to get back and caught up to the baseball. But I'm looking forward to being at the M&T Bank Stadium, as I will be at every preseason game. I believe there's only one trip this year that I may do the game out of a studio, which is the Seattle game. But a lot of travel for your boy this season.
That's great to hear. Yes, the schedule makers did Ricardo a solid because they're playing the AFC East, which means you don't have to go to the West Coast. The road games are the Patriots right off the bat, and the Jets. Oh, that's the drive up the turnpike. So, yeah, very, very easy for you to get to the games. Great to hear you're going to be doing as many games in studio and maybe only one that you're going to need to call on the monitor. What was – shame on me, I'm having a senior moment. What was this football stadium in Baltimore before it was M&T? Because everybody changes the name on their damn team, their stadium's names, because they get a new sponsor. The bank that sponsors it gets sold. What the hell was it before it was M&T?
Good question. I think M&T was the original name.
For forever? You think from day one? No, it was something else. And
did it have another corporate name before M&T Bank?
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm making this stuff up, but I thought it was something else, which is another thing that.
Yeah, it's the next door neighbor of Oriole Park at Camden Yards. They're right there, one next to the other. So that'll be interesting. I don't know if the O's are home this week.
Yeah, the O's aren't playing. Otherwise, you're going to have a tough time getting in and out of the stadium. That's a pain in the rear end when they're both together at the same time. Hopefully, that's not the case. Or at least, hopefully, the Orioles are playing a day game if the Eagles are playing against 7 o'clock kickoff on.
Well, the Orioles played at home this past weekend against your New York Mets. So it probably won't be on the road this weekend.
They haven't been my New York Mets for a while, but that's okay. You know, my dad was there for a long period of time, so I get it. All right, Ricardo, we will let you say adieu here. We're definitely going to try and get you on at least once more before the season gets underway. Looking forward to hearing your highlights after the fact.
Anytime, Jody. McMullen, you guys are the best. I enjoy coming on each and every time, so just reach out, and I'll be here for you.
Our pleasure. That is Rickie, Ricardo, voice of the Eagles, and Espanol, here with his son, Birds 365. And yeah, when Eagles are playing, I know that I can go get Rickie's highlights after the fact. And when the Eagles make a huge play, he is phenomenal at it. Yes, we know Merrill. Yes, we know the television guys. And oh, by the way, the Eagles are going to have the #1 Fox team a bunch this year, the #1 CBS team this year, because either Fox or CBS, because they got a bunch of games, and the whole division between the NFC must be on Fox and the AFC must be on CBS isn't what it used to be. They kind of shared the games. I don't even understand it, but they're going to get first-rate announcers and or primetime announcers plenty this year. But then you go back and you catch the Rickie Ricardo call, and Espanol is always a lot of fun too. All right, Jody Mac coming back. I need to put a bow on the show. Keep it right here on Birds 365.